Today we're looking at how a few broken pieces of Greek limestone actually solved a massive 2,000-year-old historical puzzle. This is an explainer on how one random archaeological find perfectly linked up Roman bureaucracy with some of the earliest historical texts we have. Now, you might not think old rocks and Roman administration sound like a page-turner, but this is basically a 2,000-year-old detective story. It's a case where historical texts and physical dirt just perfectly align. We're talking about 9 fragments of gray limestone found in Delphi that somehow managed to mathematically lock down the timeline of the Apostle Paul's ministry and the broader apostolic age. To figure out how these stones pulled that off, we have to start by setting the stage back in Rome. So here's our timeline. We're looking at a super tight 3-year window right between AD 49 and AD 51. And the whole thing kicks off with Emperor Claudius making this massive geopolitical move that accidentally sets up our entire story.
In AD 49, Emperor Claudius kicks the Jewish community out of Rome. It's a sweeping edict, and because of it, a leather worker and tent maker named Aquila, along with his wife Priscilla, are forced to pack up their entire lives. They leave Italy and migrate down to the bustling, highly strategic Greek commercial hub of Corinth.
What's really interesting here is that the Roman historian Suetonius actually backs up this exact expulsion. Writing decades later in his biography of Claudius, he mentions the emperor expelled the Jews because they were constantly rioting over someone named Justus. Now, most historians think he likely misunderstood internal community debates about Christ as a living political rioter named Justus. But either way, it perfectly corroborates the historical timeline and the migration of Aquila and Priscilla. Because of that edict, when the Apostle Paul rolls into Corinth in the spring of AD 50, he meets Aquila and Priscilla. They happen to share the same trade, so they team up. Paul works right alongside them, making tents, and spends his Sabbaths reasoning in the local synagogue. He ends up staying in Corinth for a solid 18 months, just teaching and building up a community.
So let's meet Proconsul Gallio. Right as Paul is making waves in Corinth and dealing with some pretty intense local opposition, a highly connected, ultra-wealthy Roman aristocrat named Lucius Junius Gallio Annaeanus gets sent in to manage the province. His official title is proconsul. Earlier in Roman history, the province of Achaia had struggled economically, so Emperor Tiberius made it an imperial province. But by AD 44, Claudius handed it back to the Roman Senate. That meant it was governed by a proconsul, who was typically chosen by drawing lots and served a strict 1-year term. They usually started in early summer, meaning Gallio showed up in Corinth around July of AD 51.
To give you a sense of who this guy was, his famous brother, the Stoic philosopher Seneca, described him as this incredibly sweet, charming guy who just coasted above the drama. He had this legendary Stoic tranquility. People just liked him. He definitely wasn't the kind of Roman official who went looking for a fight or let himself get dragged into petty local squabbles.
Which brings us to the incident at the Bema. That legendary Stoic chill gets seriously put to the test in the fall of AD 51. Local leaders drag Paul in front of Gallio, basically hoping the new guy will crack down on a religious dispute. They accuse Paul of persuading people to worship in ways contrary to the law. And we actually know exactly where this happened because archaeologists excavated the Roman Forum of Corinth and dug up the actual stone judgment seat called the Bema. It sits right in the middle of the marketplace. This was the official public tribunal where the Roman magistrate sat to address the public and issue rulings. So when the historical text says they brought Paul to the judgment seat, it's referencing a very real, massive stone platform that you can still go look at today. The crucial point here is that Gallio takes one look at the case and throws it out completely. As a Roman governor, he drew a sharp legal line between ius publicum, actual crimes against the Roman state, and questiones intestinae, internal religious disputes. Judaism was a permitted religion in the Roman Empire. Gallio basically told them, look, if this were a serious crime, I'd hear it, but this is an argument about your own words and laws. Figure it out yourselves. He flat out refused to be a judge of it and cleared the court, completely unbothered by the chaos that followed.
Let's jump back to our timeline and see how this builds, because right after this trial, Gallio's term gets derailed by a sudden health crisis.
Both his brother Seneca and the historian Pliny the Elder mention that Gallio caught a severe fever while serving in Achaia. In fact, Seneca recounts Gallio jumping on a ship, yelling that the disease was not of the body, but of the place. He just immediately fled by sea to find a better climate, cutting his time there extremely short. This confirms he was there, but also strongly suggests he didn't stay a single day longer than his required 1-year term.
Next up, the Delphi paper trial. Before he left, Gallio filed a routine administrative report to Emperor Claudius. It was about the nearby city of Delphi, famous for the oracle and the temple of Apollo, losing its population and really struggling. Claudius writes back, and the leaders of Delphi were so hyped to get an official letter from the emperor outlining a plan to repopulate their city, they did what anyone in the ancient world would do. They carved the entire text into monumental limestone and built it right into their civic structures for everyone to see. Fast forward a couple thousand years, those stone fragments sat in the dirt as repurposed building material until French archaeologists dug them up in the early 1900s. And right there, in the reconstructed Greek text, Claudius explicitly mentions L. Junius Gallio, my friend and proconsul. This single discovery literally cemented Gallio's exact title and location, perfectly in line with the historical witness statements from the Book of Acts.
And finally, the epigraphic lock.
Finding the stone is great, but how we use it to get the exact, undisputed year is a real masterclass in Roman bureaucracy. This is where the detective work gets incredibly precise. See, Roman emperors didn't date their documents using a universal calendar year like we do. Instead, they dated things by how many times their armies hailed them as a victorious commander, an imperatorial acclamation. Right at the top of the Delphi stone, in standard administrative formula, Claudius lists his 26th imperatorial acclamation. To figure out exactly when that 26th acclamation happened, historians just had to look at another piece of stone. This time, it's a giant aqueduct in Rome called the Aqua Claudia. The inscription carved into the Porta Maggiore, commemorating that aqueduct, explicitly lists Claudius's 27th acclamation. Because we have the hard receipts that the Aqua Claudia was completed by August of AD 52, we know mathematically that the Delphi letter, which only lists the 26th acclamation, had to be written just before that. The scholarly consensus firmly places the writing of the Delphi inscription in a very narrow window between January and August of AD 52. Since Claudius says Gallio recently reported to me, and we know Gallio served a strict one-year term starting in the summer, this perfectly locks Gallio's term to July AD 51 through the summer of AD 52. And just like that, we have our absolute anchor. It gives us the exact dates for Paul's 18 months in Corinth, placing his arrival in the spring of AD 50, and lets us confidently date the earliest texts of the New Testament. When you stack it all up, it's genuinely impressive. The casual details dropped in a first-century text perfectly match the expulsion edicts recorded by Suetonius. They match the physical architectural layout of the Corinthian Forum and the judgment seat. They match local administrative titles found on paving blocks in the city, like the Erastus inscription. And they perfectly align with the imperial math carved into an aqueduct in Rome and a sanctuary wall in Greece. We've built an incredibly precise, undisputed timeline off a few broken rocks that ancient people literally reused as random building material. It makes you realize how fragile our connection to the past is, but also how durable the truth can be when the pieces finally come together. Which really makes you wonder, with so much of the ancient world still unexcavated, how much more of our history is just sitting under the dirt right now, waiting to be found?
What the Fact? Follow for more.